For approval and reading of the minutes, I call on Vice Chair Commissioner Turner.
Mr. Chairman, I've had a chance to review the minutes. I find them in order. I make a motion for their approval.
Okay, all in favor, is there a second? Second. Mr. Phillips. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. First, we need to announce an alternative vacancy on the Equalization Board to fill the unexpired term of John Barbie, and this term will expire on April 2016. We need to announce two vacancies on the Industrial Development and Health Education and Facilities Board, currently held by Mr. Edwin Davenport and Mr. Randall Matlock. Announce two citizen-at-large vacancies on the Insurance Committee, currently held by Donnie Hester and Ms. Susan Boney. And we need to fill a commissioner vacancy on the Insurance Committee to replace Commissioner Will Jordan. I think that we have one applicant, Commissioner Rodden Allen. Would you like to address the committee at this time?
Well, you don't have a whole lot of choices. I felt pretty good about my appointment, I gotta tell you. But I do have a background in insurance. I spent 20 years as a corporate healthcare executive, primarily focused on managed care. So I know a little bit about what we're going to be looking at and talking about. So I feel pretty qualified.
Well, thank you for your application. Certainly appreciate it. Any nominations from the floor?
Move that Ms. Allen be nominated and recommended for acclamation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations. Your name will be submitted to the full commission.
Thank you so much. But there won't be nominations from the floor, right?
We'll have to.
I don't know, it may be.
Okay, fill two vacancies on the Community Care Board. We have four applicants. Mr. Greg Lyles, Mr. Doug Brodry, Ms. Deborah Kennedy, and Ms. Donna Bueller. Blue, I'm sorry, thank you. Is Mr. Lyles in the office?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lyles, would you like to address the committee, please?
Well, I have served on community care board since about 2001, I think. We've seen a lot of changes, a lot of progress has been made, and I certainly appreciate your support in being a part of that progress and continuing to make that facility the best it can be.
Thank you so much for the application. Are there any questions for Mr. Lyles?
I'd just like to make a comment.
Okay.
I had the privilege of serving 6.5 years with him on there, and he did a fantastic job. He's well qualified, and I was glad to be associated with that young gentleman.
Thank you.
I think that our second applicant, Mr. Bowdry, had an emergency with his child, so he did call and say that he's still interested, but unable to be here this evening. Ms. Deborah Kennedy. Ms. Kennedy in the audience. And Ms. Donna Ballou.
Hi, I have about 30 plus years in office administration, and I also got a CNA, Certified Nursing designation in 2010, and spent actually 13 months working in a facility, and I want to combine those two and serve my community the best that I can. When Mr. Patterson told me about this opening, I was really excited that I might could use my experience in working with that. I appreciate it.
Any questions for Ms. Ballou? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we cease nominations, that we move forward with these four candidates, and that we vote on the top two and send those to the commission.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're going to vote for two. Whenever you're ready to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson,
Mr. Lyle and Ms. Blue.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Mr. Lyles and Ms. Ballou.
Commissioner P,
Lyles and Bowdry.
Commissioner Phillips,
Lyles and Ballou.
Commissioner Stevens,
Lyles and Blue.
Commissioner Turner,
Lyles and Kennedy.
Commissioner Gooch.
Mr. Lyles, and Mrs. Ballou.
Mr. Lyles with 7, Ms. Ballou with 5.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ballou. Mr. Lyles, your name will be submitted to the full commission on June the 11th at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have to fill 2 vacancies on the Limeball Library Board. We have two applicants for those 2 positions, Mrs. Suma Clark and Mr. Daniel Graves. Are either of those?
He's doing National Guard duty and she's out of town.
Okay, out of town.
I'm the library director, so I'm here in their stead.
All right, well, thank you for being here tonight. Is there a motion concerning these 2 applicants?
Move that both of the applicants be nominated and recommended by acclamation.
And recommend. Is there a second? Commissioner Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Human Resource Director. Ms. Sutton.
Good evening, how are you?
Good.
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 We'll see in about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Thought that it would be easier. I know that it's really nice to have it on the iPad, but sometimes there's things that you just need to be able to hold in your hand and look at. So I'm going to give you a little background of why I'm here this evening. At the fall of two.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to come up to the table also?
Well, I guess I can. You know, let her do most of all this talking.
She looks like she needs some company.
Oh, okay. Give her a little support.
So at the end of 2011, you may recall that we did a salary survey at that time. During the budget process in 2011, there was some conversation about salaries, those people that had been topped out, when was the last time we had done a survey and those type things. So we did a survey in 2011 and implemented it in 2012 budget year. And during that time, we went to an expanded table. You may recall we did have 14 grades, and now we have 50 plus grades on our table. Because what had happened is all had been combined, and so when we stratified it, it let us put them in a grade that's, for some people, they just needed to be in their own grade based on what they were doing. As I've watched turnover the past 2 years, and I've looked, when we implemented that survey, another piece was we couldn't implement it in totality. So we got the complete survey, but because it was cost prohibitive to implement the entire survey. So we looked at the positions that were behind compared to the competitive market, and said these were the ones that we needed to impact the most, but then we also adjusted the table to impact others. So that was what was done in 2012. So as I look at turnover trends, and we've had some departments that have had some difficulties hiring and staying staffed, one of which is our technology department. And without technology, we struggle. And so we've had some very important positions, not that all of our positions are not important, because they are, but when we talk about our technology, that's what keeps the county operating, so for all of our departments. So we've had quite a bit of turnover in that department, and we've had some difficulty staffing positions. Another positions that we've had difficulties in is our correctional facilities. That's not only the jail, but it's also our correctional work center and our juvenile detention center. Based on turnover, people leaving for not even necessarily in corrections jobs, but also going into other markets based on pay. The majority of those were based on pay. Some people were let go for other reasons, but that has been one of the trends.
Or when you, if I can ask real quick,
Sure.
When you reference that we know that they're doing that, is that brought up in their exit interviews, or how do we know that they're leaving because of better pay somewhere else, or is that just an assumption based on what we think is happening? So when you're referencing that we've done some research on that and individuals from the county have done that, is that based off of exit interviews where they're saying, yeah, I'm leaving because I'm making more in the
Yes, sir.
private market? Okay.
One of our technology positions actually left for 100% pay increase.
Okay. Is that company hiring anybody else?
For similar,
Oh.
was it for a similar job, Sonia? or was it?
Yes,
for-
it was IT security officer.
Same
We were
thing?
paying 45 and they paid him 90 plus.
Same thing?
Excuse me?
I mean, was it a promotion
Same
for that
position.
person? The exact same position?
Same position, doing security for, actually the company was, oh my gosh, where's the base? It's out of Europe, and they have a facility here in Rutherford County. Used to, for our technology positions, we were competing with more of the Nashvilles and the international markets. Murfreesboro didn't have a lot of competition, so we were able to keep that relatively the same throughout what others were paying. But the trends have changed. I believe Brian said, and I don't want to misquote, but I believe Brian said that when he went to the Chamber of Commerce, they have special events that they bring in organizations from throughout the county. And they had a technology group come out, and he said there were over 50 plus new technology vendors within Rutherford County. And so that's what he's competing against. It's not like he's competing, it's not like a patrol officer is competing against all of the municipalities and other counties. He's competing with other entities right here in Rutherford County for those same technology positions. And then on our exit interviews, they tell us, am I moving to another city? Did I just not like the work? Was it for pay? We ask when we can. You try to be sensitive because that's, ultimately it's none of our business. But when they can tell us that that's the reason, we know that.
Yeah, that's why I was asking was if part of the conversation for this evening is, hey, we know that we're underpaying and they're telling us that. How are we getting that information instead of just basing it off a guess? Are we getting 75% of our exit interviews are saying, yeah, I'm leaving for better pay? That to me has more of an impact than just saying, well, we think that's why we're leaving, but nobody's really telling us in our exit interviews because we don't ask that or we can't ask that or they don't share it. So I just want to make sure we're talking apples to apples when you're saying, here's what we're identifying as the issue, and I want to make sure there's, the way we're getting to that conclusion is accurate and consistent across the board and not just speculation, I guess is why I'm asking.
I won't say that everybody who leaves us returns their exit interviews.
Sure,
We try to
I
do
get
face to
that.
face,
Yeah, I understand.
and those that we try to schedule appointments, and those that won't make their appointment or say it's not convenient,
Right.
or conducive to my schedule, we do send them out paper copies
Right.
of the exit interviews. So I won't say that everybody that comes in, but the feedback I'm getting from the majority of the departments when they call me up, they say, I've got yet another person leaving. They're
Right.
going to, they're going to Corrections Corporation of America, or they're going to, and we've had some people leave for totally different fields, just because that was what either that was what their degree was in and they couldn't find a job when they got out of school, or they moved here, and some of them have gone on to do that. We have had some of that. And so that would be you can't compare that though, because those are two totally different fields.
But that helps because even when we were doing health and ed meeting last month, Director Odom had referenced compared to what some of the other counties pay their teachers, we were underpaying ours, and here was the number, here was the difference, and even referenced certain folks that were leaving for a particular increase of 22, 25, 27,000, depending on whatever the position was. So that's kind of what I was looking for, was he had numbers out there that provided, here's what we know Wilson County pays, here's what we know Davidson County, Williamson County, Marshall County we're paying. And so I was just curious if we were doing the same thing when you're getting that information, so we can have it to look at it and say, here's where, I'm not making this up, and I know you're not, but it provides tangible numbers for us to look at and say, here's what we're missing and losing in talent because we're not paying as well as what the market pays and what we might be able to pay.
Yes, and I will tell you all of that.
No,
This
that's
is a
perfect.
series, so I want to give you some background before I hand it out because it's a lot of information
Sure.
to digest. And I've really tried to put it in the easiest, the simplest format that I possibly could, so we may still have some questions, and that's perfectly fine, or if you want to come by. But I want to give you some background why I did what I did. So in the turnover, if we just look at turnover, in the calendar year 2014, so I'm not talking fiscal, I'm talking January to December, we had 15.6% turnover in the county, as compared to 11.9% in 2013. When a few years ago, actually when I came, the turnover rate in the county was running like 3.9%. And for me, coming out of the private sector, that was just like an unheard of. I was like, nobody leaves, this is awesome. And so now we're up to 15.6. Now some of that is because we've had retirement trends, we've had other things that have happened that has caused vacancies. But in the first quarter of 2015, we've already had 5.2% turnover. And again, some of the reasons are last year we had 17 people to retire,
and we've already had 10 people to retire this year. So that will increase some of the turnover. Some additional things that I want you to think about as I talk about the future.
Sonia, let me
Okay.
interrupt you.
Okay.
You mentioned retirement. I don't really consider that turnover. If you take those people out, what kind of percentage are you looking at?
I didn't calculate that. They're in that number though.
If it's 17, how many people are total, or are you talking
Well,
about?
out of the 17, out of about 1,000, so.
It's 17 out of 1,000 that quit. How many people left?
Let me see. I think I've got my turnover report with me.
No, there's such thing as
Right,
turnover.
no,
People-
I see
people
what you're
quitting.
saying, yeah.
Those people
We
really
had
didn't quit.
201 to quit, and so 10 of those, and I shouldn't say quit, in our turnover numbers, 201 people left, and of those, 17 were retirees. Okay? And so of the 67, now, I've given this number for retirees this year as of today, June 1st. This data was, the turnover data was for the first quarter, so that would have been through the end of March. We had already had 67 people to leave. Of that, I know that, I'm pretty sure it was like 7 retirees up until March. So, I mean, that does change it some, so 60 out of the number, but it's still, I mean, that's still a pretty big number, 60 people to leave within the first quarter.
Sandra, are most of these folks on the lower end of our pay scales, or they, like the one you said we were paying 45,000, he got his pay double? I assume he was on the upper end of our technology pay scale. So where are these people falling as a rule, or is there any rhyme or reason to it?
Well, we've had, I can kind of look at, I don't think I have their names here. Some of the ones, especially the technology people, are going to be on the higher end. I know that we lost our systems administrator, our IT security officer, Doug. What was Doug's title? When
He was
Doug Brown. He was
second person under Brian.
second command. So, I mean, those are our higher end positions that we're losing in that. Now, in our corrections positions, those are more of our officers, some corporals, some sergeants. So we would be anywhere from entry level up to mid level. We're not having a lot of turnover in our upper management, although we did lose a lieutenant in juvenile detention center. And at the correctional work center, the majority of those have been just the corrections officer. So it kind of runs around. In the health department, I know that we've lost several RNs, and RNs are very hard to fill. We currently have 2 LPN positions available that we've not been able to fill. So, I mean, there's a mixture. I wouldn't say that it's any one level that we're losing.
Well, the reason I ask is, of course, Alan and Jeff will know when I talk about it. Before the pay scale changed, years ago, we had multiple levels, and it was confusing, and they came to us and said, hey, we need to simplify this, and that's where we dropped back down to, the fewer levels. And we kind of rode that for a while, and then last year we went right back up again. And what my question is are we doing these multiple levels to get their pay scale up? If so, I don't see the need for that. I mean, you can just say, hey, we need to raise these pay scales compared to other industries in the county. That's where the confusion for me comes in. And of course, I'm not used to working in HR other than firing, interviewing. But as far as the pay scale and things like that goes, that's beyond my pay scale for sure. So that's why I'm asking.
Well, what happened with our other, of course, what happened with the other table, whenever I looked at the survey analysis, what ended up happening is there was people with the 14 grades, there were people be grouped in. So what would happen is you would have somebody that really was supposed to be at the high end of that grade, but they're stuck there, and somebody at the lower end is making more than they should be. So it was kind of cheating the person that was at the top. It's not about increasing the pay table, but it's about doing what's fair for that person. When I look at it, we try to group them within a percentage range. So the salary range in each band, we try to keep it at a 9% difference. So if you look at everybody that's in that group, for all the job titles that's in that group, there should not be more than a 9% difference in their pay anywhere that you look. before we were having some that were at a higher end, and then the one at the bottom would be like 0%. So the person at the top was kind of getting cheated, and the person at the bottom was making out like a bandit. So that was why we expanded the table. To save some of the confusion, I think the confusion was about how to place someone onto the table is what I heard from the departments as I talked to them, and that was one of the things that we worked on when we implemented the new table. We have an evaluation. I have a sheet that calculates, and we take their time with the county, and so it's valued on each individual person. I evaluate every person when they come in. Every employee's got their own evaluation, and so just because you're in the same job doesn't mean you're going to make the same. It's based on your experience with the county and in your position. So it's you know, just for you, and that's how most industries do it. I even looked back on the city of Murfreesboro to see how they were going to implement theirs. I didn't know how they had implemented their past pay table, but I pulled up and read that, not all of some 300 pages, but I looked at the things that were comparable to us to see how they were going to put these people on the table. And the evaluation system that they have come up with to use is very similar to ours. So I think that's where part of the confusion. They didn't know if when somebody went up a grade, if they went back a step, and so everybody wasn't being paid equally. This way, I can print you out a sheet, and this is what you're going to make. When they come in, they come sit at my desk, and I calculated it up and said, this is your salary. So I think that's where.
Well, excuse me, I need to come by and just spend some time sitting at your desk.
Come on.
And learn this a little bit better, but I mean, from my experience out in, I won't say the real world, but, you know, you got certain pay scales that, say, a mechanic, or an electrician, or a plumber, or a fabricator, or whatever. You know, they're gonna have max out points there, and it doesn't matter if you've got 50 years or you've got 2 years. You know, of course, you won't get to a maxed out position there, but once you do, you know, the only way you're gonna see pay changes is for a yearly, you know, reevaluation of those jobs and the costs. Now, your more technical jobs, whether, you know, if you're an engineer, IT type person, now I can see those being a lot more competitive. But, you know, some of the jobs we've got out here are, you know, they're going to be baseline and be compared, I would think, with industry standards all over. So, I mean, I don't see, you know, having to reevaluate as much. And like I said, I'm going to have to come by, and I don't want to take up all your time.
I think when you see
tonight, just
this, every position doesn't change. So I want to show you what I've got, because I hear what you're saying, and you're right. Some of the positions won't change, but the ones that need to change, I want you to see that, and I want you to see why it needs to. So I think after you see this, maybe it will answer some of your questions, and if it doesn't, I welcome you to come by. In fact, I would, you know, love it if you did. So.
Well, again, I know Alan and myself and Jeff for sure have seen this. We've had times in the past where we were bleeding employees because they were leaving for better opportunities, whether it was Murfreesboro City picking up our law enforcement officers after we went to the cost of sending them to the academy, and then they stay a minimum time and, you know, go somewhere else where they were paid more. To same thing with the ambulance service. We've had that problem with those folks too. So, I mean, to me, you fix that by, you know, every 2 or 3 years reevaluating, you know, what those pay scales are industry-wide in your areas.
And that's what I've done. That's what I've done this year. That's what I want to show you.
You're not talking about changing all these pay scales and
No.
things again.
No.
I
The
thought that's
scale-
where we're headed down.
No, we're not headed down that road. No, the pay scale will stay. The structure that it is today is that's how that will stay. All I did was evaluate the positions. Okay.
I'll come back.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to just give you some of the part of the reason that we did this was for competitive trends, public safety competition. That's not only in the corrections facilities, but it also helps our law enforcement, our animal control. We had some conversation with the prosecutors and the DA based on the prosecutors' pay not being competitive with what the other state employees. And then we looked at the departments both with state and county employees, because several of our departments have state and county employees, to make sure that we were staying competitive with that. So the first thing that I'm going to give you, and let's see, wait, this is the first thing. So the first thing I will give you. There's 3.
Thank you.
I may have to show from there, but I guess I have it too. Oops. Okay. Yes, Madam Chair.
You have that.
Okay. So the first column is the pay grades that you're talking about now. What this is the first one says our current. That's our current pay table, the way it is today. It's the grades that we have, 1 through 56. The very first column after that says hourly rate at step 1. That's step 1. If somebody comes into the county with no experience, that's where they go, step 1. And then the hourly rate at step 10 is our median. That is our midpoint for our employees that if they've been here with 10 years or have 10 years of experience in their position. I broke this down into an hourly rate. Sometimes I think that's a little bit better to see. The majority of our employees are non-exempt, which means they're on an hourly rate structure anyways. So I wanted you to see what their currently hourly rate structure looks like. The next column is the survey complete. This is a survey we polled Williamson County, City of Franklin, Sumner County, City of Hendersonville, Montgomery County, City of Clarksville, the City of Murfreesboro, Hamilton County, and then ourselves. One of the things that I had been told was that some of our law enforcement people were going to Hamilton County, so it was asked that I consider that in the survey, so I did. Those that participated, we had Williamson County and Sumner County both participated, but they had an entry level and no end. So there was no way that I could get a median point for that. I had to have a beginning and end to get to a median. So I could not use them in this analysis because of that reason. But I do have their entry level positions just to kind of see where we at entry was. Also, the City of Clarksville chose not to participate. They just did not send in any of their information. So based on the others that were left, I count the counties twice as heavy because we know that the cities have a greater ability to pay, so we count the counties twice as heavy. So Rutherford County was counted twice, Montgomery County counted twice, Hamilton County was counted twice. So that way it would offset some of the additional salaries of the cities. If you look at the survey, it's the same grades that we have because there are positions in each of these grades. On theirs as well, you have the hourly rate at step 1, the hourly rate at step 10. What the difference annual 1 means is that means to the employee, to the person in that pay grade 1, step 1, that means that they would bring home an additional $351.37 a year. The $13.51 is based on a bi-weekly pay period. So bi-weekly, they would bring home an extra $13.51. Okay? So is everyone following me so far? The next column is if we took the existing table that we had today and said we're not going to do the complete survey because of the cost, because when I tell you the cost, you'll see why. If we just lifted the table 2% for a cost of living increase, which would touch everybody who's currently working, it would touch all of our employee population. Same grade structure, set up just like we are, same positions. The first one is the hourly rate step 1 for this pay table, and the next one would be hourly rate step 10. Again, the difference in annual 1 is the difference in the employee's annual salary on this table with a 2% lift in a pay grade step 1 of $395.80 per year, or $15.22 annually. Now, of course, with the 2% lift as it goes up, you know, as you go up the table, it will increase. But I wanted to give you an analysis to show you what that meant to the employees who were taking the dollars home. So that's the first piece. These are 2 ways to look at it. One complete survey means that we took all the survey data and said, if this position's in a pay grade 1, this is the salary range. you're gonna notice that on the survey complete, that the difference in the salaries is less than. And there's a reason for that, because some of the positions, once we evaluated, moved to a different one. So it may be the ones that are left in there. We re-stratified the table based on the minimum, maximum, and median for each position. And when you re-stratified, it changed these numbers. So that's what made the difference, okay?
Sonia, that 2% increase,
Mm-hmm.
the one on the far right,
Yes, sir.
is 2% over the current, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first piece.
May I ask a question?
You sure can.
So, on the survey complete, let's just take grade 1.
Okay.
They're annually making $351 more than with us. On this 2%.
No.
Okay,
Okay, that's not right.
that's all right.
So the 351.37, I wanted you to say, if Sonia is in a pay grade 1, step 1, what would implementing this new information mean to me this year? So that 351.37 means if I'm in a pay grade 1, step 1, I'm going to bring home an extra $351.37 this next year. That's what that means.
On their yearly rate.
On their yearly rate. Mm-hmm.
So the survey complete hourly rate in step 10 rate, that's what the survey did.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the difference is, okay, so, and then the difference on the 2% increase, what it would mean to them.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It means that's to the employee, what that would mean to the employee. Okay.
So this doesn't say how much they would make if they were working for this survey example?
No. Mm-mm. Okay, so there's,
Do these surveys take into account like benefits, cost of living,
No.
taxes?
Lisa calculates that. I calculate mine just based on their base rate. So these are base rate numbers, is what it is. And then she would have to put in any benefits that were included for that. Oh. This next sheet, if you look at it, it's all the position, all the titles that we have in the county. So I've got them in alphabetical order. The first column tells you that the accounts payable, the accountant who does our payables, is currently in a pay grade 18, okay? The survey would move them to a pay grade 19 on the survey table, okay? If we list the survey, if we lift the table to 2%, then it would take them to an 18. And then the mayor's recommendation is after we looked at all the positions, and he said for continuity within the departments which report to him, there was some changes made to that as well. So this tells you what they're currently making, what the survey says they would make, the 2% lift to the table, and the column says survey 10% or more grade. That should have said 2% lift to the table. It's not supposed to be survey. First of all, I missed that.
It's supposed to be right.
It's supposed to be where we lifted the table 2%.
The second column, you said,
Third, where it
Far
says
right,
survey
far right
10%.
that should be
The 2% lift, yes, sir. And what this does is, this is where it'll get a little bit hard for me to explain, but if the accounts payable on the survey says they're not in the right salary range based on your existing table, they need to go up, then that's what that does. When we applied the 2% lift to the table, it corrected some of these positions and they no longer needed to move to a new grade. And so you will see that when you go down here. So the accountant payable, when we did the 2% lift, that corrected the difference from the survey and where they were at. So that's why it has them staying in a pay grade 18. Okay, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. The 10% more, what we did is we said the complete survey will be costly to implement. So if we take the 10% of our population who their salaries are off the most to impact, then these are only the ones that are highlighted are the ones whose salaries was off by more than 10% after the 2% lift compared to the survey. Did I lose anybody on that one?
Say it again.
Okay. So every job title that's highlighted in gray, they are highlighted in gray because their current salary is more than 10% less than what the survey said it should be, even after we lifted the table by 2%.
So we're not just behind on them, we're way behind.
Yeah. And
Right.
some of them
yeah.
are pretty big percentages.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay, so does that make sense? Does everybody follow me with that? Okay. So as you will see, any numbers that are in bold just meant that called for a change off the current table. And again, I mentioned the highlighted. So when we went back, we said, well, you know, we've got to keep this in range. And like I said, Mayor Burgess and Lisa Nolan and I looked at everybody and said to try to keep continuity within the departments. I also sit down individually. I spoke with Dana at the health department because she does have a dual department. Talked about her positions, the people were changing, how that was going to impact people within her department. Brian Robertson and I sat down and looked at his department. Sheriff Arnold and Chief Garrett came over and met with me on 2 separate occasions, and we talked about his department and his people. And I talked to who else? There was some others that I talked to. I can't remember that their department. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to mess up the flow of their department based on reporting structure and those type things. So this is what was left. The column to the right is the mayor. What the mayor was willing to recommend if this. I'm not misstating that, correct? If this body so chose to forward this onto budget, that was what he was willing to recommend. And so that would move, for example, Mike Nunley from his current pay grade of 43, it would take him to a 45. But as you can see where the survey had him going. And it's not any one group of persons. There are department heads in here, but there's also, you know, interpreters, the captain of fire, a dental assistant, our detention officers, our prosecutors, and so it's a range of people. Our mechanics, communications, registered dietitian, our registered nurse, software specialist. A lot of our technology people moved, our wellness and safety specialists and our youth services officers. So I wanted to give you this. Now the final piece, so that what you really want to know is what does this cost me? It's taking me 15 minutes to get here. So, or 30. That was your next question. There's those. Because that's what it,
While
okay.
you're passing those out,
Okay.
These that are highlighted
Yes, sir.
are the ones that you recommended a special.
We're just saying they move. They're the only ones that move other than the 2% lift.
But they would require a special adjustment in their salary. Is that what you're saying?
They would go to a new grade.
They go to a new grade.
Which would require an adjustment to their
Yeah.
salary.
Well, yes. I mean, if they went to a new grade, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And some of those we cannot accommodate everything that needs to be done even in the first year. So they're limited the first year, so some of those will take 2 years to get where they need to be.
We capped it at 7,500, the max.
The max any
You know,
increase.
in the past, we've capped pay increases, and so this would even be with the cap at 7,500. Now, the number that I'm going to give you doesn't have the caps in. Lisa has that in her budget, because I did the total amount just so you could see the full effect. But that's one of the things we went back and we capped any of those that were way skewed at $7,500. So the next sheet that you've got is laid out, and I've only showed you 2 of the different ones. I calculated this 6 different ways, but I just wanted you to see what the different monies would do. County General is all other departments. I broke out the sheriff only because usually everybody says, well, how much money does this impact the sheriff? He's got 400 and something employees, so I wanted you to know that number separately. solid waste and ambulance service are in their own fund, so I broke those out as well, just so that you would have it, and then the total amount for all of the county general departments. So their current salary today is the $37,152,19. That's what it is today. If we did a step increase only, if you said, you know, we're just not going to do anything but give them their step increase, that would be $37,679,684. One of the things I didn't tell you was the difference, so I know you're going to want to know the difference. What's the difference in today and a step increase is $527,665.
Which is what percent? I guess I could.
1.75.
Thank you.
Well, the steps are 1.75. I mean, there may be, I can tell you exactly if you want to know.
527,000 is 1.75% increase over what it currently
If they're
is.
if they got a step, it's 1.75. Okay. The next column is if we lift our current table by 2% and gave them their step if they were due a step, which means that they would get a 3.75 if they were due a step. If they weren't due a step, they would get the 2%. That would be $38,879,093, and the difference between the 2% lift to the table and the current table is $1,727,074.
So that
$1,727,074. So it would be 1.2 new money. And this doesn't account for those that are capped or the ones that were not. I think this has the ones that we did not recommend. It doesn't have the mayor's recommendation, so that would go down some. This is just the full amount. The next column is the total evaluation. I did not include that one because it is, if I haven't lost you already, it would really confuse you. I then went back and looked at every single employee in the county, and if their pay grade changed, I redid their evaluation. This number was going to be 2.2 million more money. If I put them in their new grade, same step, it was going to be 1.9. That was the difference for that new grade 2015-16, that's 1.9. If we then take the salary survey and we do anything with the salary survey other than use it for where people go with the 2%, that new grade 2015-16 is the new table analysis, which that would be this column here, the middle column, the survey complete. If we implemented that, it would be the 2 million more. And if we took the new salary survey complete, reevaluated everybody's grade and step, that's 2.3 more. So when we looked at everything, the only one that we felt like we could even remotely come close to the number was the one lifting the table by the 2%, capping the 7,500, and fixing those few positions that were severely out of line.
We're in total $38,879,093. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. And again, my number doesn't have the cap, and it doesn't have some of the recommendations. Lisa can put in the budget numbers. Is that?
I'm just looking, that's right.
That's right? Is that correct?
That's correct. The $1,727,000 with this cap of 7,500 will be come
Lesser
down a little bit.
Come
We
down a
don't
little
know how
bit more.
much. It'll be a
So
small
basically,
amount.
that's what you recommended, this 2% on the 2015-2016 salary.
Plus addressing those that are out of.
Correct.
The highlighted ones.
The highlighted people.
And then capping the 75.
Now, what you've already got in the current budget recommendations that have already been discussed is the step increase, okay, so.
Which is why I said it would be
1.2
1.2
million more than have been already discussed at the budget level for every department, every office.
sorry, you were talking about like insurance. I thought you were saying, is this the number with benefits added? I misunderstood. You're talking about their vacations, sick.
Vacation days, the health insurance, are they paying 80%? They said we're paying 85, 86. Is that considered in these numbers, or is it just salary only?
Salary only, just straight
See, I
salary.
think that makes all the difference in the world, and then cost of living is more expensive over in Franklin and Williamson County than it is in Murfreesboro.
Well, this doesn't have Williamson County in it because they only had a beginning but no end. And Sumner only had a beginning but no end. So this has got Montgomery County. It has, of course, City of Murfreesboro, which they should be comparable to us. It does have the City of Franklin, however, and it does have Hamilton County. Those are the ones that participated and had something that I could compare to. The Williamson County and the Sumner County, as I mentioned earlier, sent me their beginning salaries, but there was no end. I said, well, where's your max? We don't have a max. I was like, oh, okay. So.
Do they use like a merit-based system over there?
He just said that was their entry salary and they didn't have an end, so he didn't tell me.
How many total positions are listed on the spreadsheet?
You talking about this?
This one with all the, I counted it up, and based on what I think I counted right with the mayor's recommendation, there was 31 positions that would be affected by the recommendation based off of their current grade.
So
I didn't know how many were on.
Do you want me to tell
Total.
you how many people are gray?
No, I just was curious. On this first page, there's like 50 positions, and there's 50 on this one and 50 on the
I mean,
third
there's
one.
like
and
1,000
40 on-
employees that account for all these pages.
Right, and that's what I was looking for. So out of the 31 positions that the mayor recommends, that could be 150 people total, or
No,
it
it's
won't be that.
one,
right. Yeah,
six.
Detention officers would have to know how many of those.
right. That's what. How many of those have multiple
7, 8,
people that would
9,
fall under that title? I guess.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 26, 27, 28, 30, 42, and then about, would you say, how many detention? It's 36 minus the detention. Detention officers, we have about 30 at 30 at each of the juvenile detention and correctional work centers, so that'd be about 60, but gosh, I'd hate to estimate. I can't even think how many at the sheriff's office. It'd probably be about 100.
It might be 100 plus.
Yeah, so
Right.
it might be about 200 people.
That's what I was, so
Yeah.
if we're talking 1,000 people and there's 200 would be affected, that would be 25%, 20% of our total employee pool would be affected by the decision tonight.
Well, it would be
Whatever that
great.
might
No,
be.
everybody
Might
would
get
be-
that 2%.
Everybody.
Right, I'm saying based on the mayor's recommendation, though. That's what I was saying. So
Yeah, it would be
even
about
if we
200
went with the
people.
mayor's, it'd be 20% of the people, everybody would get the 2%. I'm just trying to find, understand what the difference is and the right thing to do.
Speaking of detention officers, if we look at,
Yeah.
like their current grade is 13,
Yes, sir.
and if someone is in a step 10, they've been there for a long time, and they're at step 10, they're making $15.69 an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we took them to grade 15, they would immediately go up to $16.96 an hour, which is $1.27 an hour, or $2,461 a year, or an 8.1% increase. That's what we're talking about for detention officers.
That would
Does
be correct.
Does that sound right?
That sounds about right, yep.
So we're looking at an 8% increase for
Well, it's probably more than, well,
some folks.
percent, but the percentage that they are behind, you have to remember, they had to be 10% or more behind in their salary structure to even be in the gray. So the survey says that they're 10% or more, being paid 10% more, 10% less than our
Than our peer
competitors.
group.
Than our peer group.
I'm not arguing with that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make
What
sure I'm following you.
What I'm trying to do is to just get to the bottom line.
Okay.
Detention officers, we mentioned those several times. We're taking them, the recommendation would be from a 13 to a 15. And if they're topped out, it would take them from $15.69 to $16.96. That's $1.27 an hour. $2,641 a year.
Multiply that by 2,080, is that what you did? Yeah,
208.
right.
And that amounts to a little over 8%, 8.1% actually. So that's where a qualified detention officer would probably go, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we could take this recommendation where they would be now, what the recommendation would be to actually see where each one of these individuals would go if we needed to.
Right, and I mean, I actually already have it calculated by every employee on it. And if you wanted to come by and say, what will this group, I can pull up just that group and say, the detention officers, this is how much money it's gonna mean to them.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know, my thought is that I'd be more interested in those people that are leaving, not the, quote, the director's positions,
Right.
the chief instead of the Indian, okay? I'd
Right.
be more interested in those, such as the detention officer and the,
Youth services officer,
exactly.
the RN,
Exactly.
dietitian, yeah, I get that.
Those types of folks, I would be, not that I'm not interested in all of them, but I would be more interested in those that we are really turning over. And, you know, you said, we had Robert, you remember a few years ago, we had a real issue with ambulance drivers, and they were just going right and left. We couldn't hire them fast enough, and we made some adjustments, and it seemed to have corrected itself. And I'd want some type of comfort level knowing that if we did this, that it would help the situation or correct the situation. And some folks would leave no matter what. If you get a detention officer that's making $15 an hour and Nissan hires him for $35 an hour,
He's gonna leave anyways.
he's gonna
Right,
go.
right.
So if we're talking about people leaving for something entirely different, that turnover is, in my mind, good turnover. A person is improving their lot in life. But if we're losing people that are going to the job or the similar job, that's the type of a thing that I would be really interested in helping to correct. Once again, I'm not interested in matching Nissan's salary, okay?
Right.
And I'm not picking on Nissan. You know, everybody should have the chance to make something decent salary, but nobody pays what those types of folks are paying. I didn't hear those type of companies mentioned in the survey, which I'm glad. We just need to be looking at like type of situations. So if the turnover is 15%, and the real turnover in my mind is 4 or 5% for people leaving, and I just threw that out there.
Oh, okay, I
don't
was
know
like,
what
I'd
it
say
is.
it's a little bit, yeah.
If it is only 4 or 5%, I wouldn't be nearly as concerned, because some folks are going to leave because it's a promotional opportunity for them, a way to improve themselves, and not going to the same job or a very similar job for more money. They're going to something entirely different.
Right,
that-
and we do have some of that. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we do have some people that leave for that reason, but then when I start looking at, you know, I just bring up the technology positions because those are the ones that are most recent. Those are leaving for like positions. I mean, you know, similar. And even in my own office, I can give a real example. I had my right hand, so I'm down to just me and Carrie and my little part-time person. He left to go to the town of Smyrna for a significant pay increase for a lateral move.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're going to have that sometimes. I'm aware of that, but I don't want us to. I guess I would rather us be a little bit proactive and do a little bit at a time until. That's more my goal with the 2% cost of living, and that's not uncommon that you do. I mean, I believe the Board of Ed is given a 3.1% cost of living to their pay structure. It's not that I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to look about our employee population, and so that's why I only brought forth to you what I felt like was a reasonable request.
I'm not disagreeing with
Right.
that, but
So-
just looking at some of these, it looks like we've got a director.
You have several directors.
Director, captain,
We've limited those directors in specific. We specifically pulled them back from where they should be with our peer group.
And Lisa and I both are appointed, and we pulled ours back because we didn't want it to appear that we were doing this for our own self-benefit. So we took us just to the 2 steps, and we did that purposely because I didn't want somebody to think that I was coming forth to benefit myself. In fact, the last survey, I cut myself completely out because I didn't want that to be the appearance that I was doing this for myself.
I guess to kind of regroup the thoughts that are running through my mind right now, I'd really like to know what the real turnover is as it relates to like a detention officer.
Okay.
Since that's the one we picked on, why those folks left, and did they go to something entirely different? I mean, get the heck out of law enforcement and just go build tires in Nissan, okay, and make a lot more money. So those type of things, you're never going to stop. But if they're going to Corrections Center
Corporation of America.
Corporation of America, those are the type of things that we want to be able to influence.
Or like our Paul's people who go to Davidson County Paul's or something like that. I get that.
Seems like, I recall a policy change now. For instance, our deputies, when we would new hire them and we'd send them for certification to school, mostly it cost us $8,000 to $10,000 to do that. We were having to leave shortly after they became certified. Now, don't we have a policy in place so that they have to sign up, say, a contract that they'll say X amount of time? That way we'll keep part of our money there. It seems like I remember either Truman or the current sheriff saying that they were asking their people to do that. Is that true?
I haven't heard that. I haven't
yeah.
heard that discussed since I've been here. It may be, but I do not
Didn't we do
think so.
that, Robert, with the ambulance service?
I don't recall.
With the
ambulance
educational
service, but
stuff, I know that if we pay
On
for their
those few people that we have
education,
on these scholarships, we have done that, but that's the only ones I'm aware of.
I was thinking we had done that with our
I think we
certified
talked
officers.
about that.
We asked them to stay for at least a year after they had, we had paid for that, or pay it back.
and that's not uncommon in industry. If it's been a day or two ago,
Can you-
but
can you
some
answer
other,
it?
I'll
Comment
ask,
back
I'll
for
ask
us.
the sheriff. I don't know I don't think that's happening anywhere else. Although that's one of the biggest complaints we get is, I don't think Lynn would mind me saying, Lynn Duke, our juvenile detention director, says, I feel like I'm just a training ground for our other services. She says they come here and they get their training, and we're actually known as one of the best in the state to train, not only at our law enforcement, but our corrections, and then they move on to somewhere else. And that's Lynn has come to me like, how am I going to stop this bleeding from that? And so that is some of it. But yes, I can absolutely determine what the real turnover. I'll pull the list and see if I can call the departments or pull it up and see exactly what their exit interview said.
Not all turnover is unhealthy.
Right.
Some turnover is healthy.
Needed, right.
And some reasons for leaving is healthy for the individual that's leaving, maybe not so for the employer. And that's the type of a situation. If we can influence, I would much rather influence than some that may say, I can go to a state job, get a state, quote, director's job for double my salary. In my estimation, that would be a promotional opportunity for that person. Go. That's the best thing you can do is go. For years, back in the 80s and 90s, Robert, you probably weren't even born then, but I'm kidding. But back in those days, a lot of employers in Rutherford County felt like they were training ground for Nissan, because Nissan was coming in.
Pillsbury, whoever, yeah.
Was doing all those kinds of things. And I don't know if you'll ever get away from some of that, because I'm not sure we'll ever be, quote, the top payer in Middle Tennessee. But to be competitive, I think, is important. And just to be able to understand, in my mind, more thoroughly, if these people are truly leaving for similar jobs and for more pay, those are the positions that I would more likely wish to impact, especially if they're leaving simply for that reason. And all of this information is mind-boggling, and just putting it together is, it would put a few years years on my life, it did. Put a few years on my life, and I understand what you're going through, and this type of information, just to disseminate it and to digest it and disseminate it is a real chore. And this is as simply put as I've seen it. You know, I can take like the correctional detention officer and apply it to these charts and know exactly how that would impact that family. And some of these folks that we're talking about were, quote, negatively impacted as it relates to some decisions that we made on benefits. And to be able to make some adjustment to those, I think would be, you mentioned fair earlier. If there's such a thing as fair, I think that would be fair.
So I want to clarify, you want just the numbers on real turnover, and you would like to know the ones that we did use in our analysis, what their benefit structure is.
If we can get that, when is the deadline to get that?
Well, this is a June meeting. I mean, when are you going to have another meeting? Are you going to have?
We're going to discuss that here in a minute.
Okay, but in any event, this discussion is ongoing with budget, and you know, the next budget meeting, they're already going to fold up everything that's been recommended. And what's been recommended so far is nothing except a step raise, okay? So I don't know where her piece of paper is, but if anything else is put on the table for consideration, instead of, the $527,000 is already included in the numbers that have been discussed over the last several weeks. If we put any additional recommendation on the table, what Lisa and Sonia and I will be putting on the table is another $1.2 million.
That's
to accommodate.
That's the 2%.
It's
That's the
actually
2% plus
1.7, but 1.2 over recommended.
over what's already been recommended previously. So that's all it would be going forward for them to discuss. We're not comfortable doing any more than that at this moment. That's one reason all of this has become quite complicated, because we really didn't think we could implement the full table in its entirety. So we've iterated and come up with a few of these alternatives, which are quite complex. I understand that part of it, but that's...
And part of the reason for the delay, because I didn't want you to think that I was just giving it to you on the 11th hour, we did the survey back in December and got it back in January. But every time we did something, I went back and had to look at 1,000 employees one by one, because I wanted to make sure if I gave you something that it was as close to accurate as I could be. I'm not saying that I didn't make human error, because that would be crazy for me to do that. But and then after we got it, we had no idea that these were going to be the kind of numbers. I mean, we just had no idea, just knowing that we had just done one a few years ago, that it was going to look like this. And so when I first got it, quite frankly, I was pretty sick at my stomach, just knowing what this would mean to our taxpayers, to you guys having to make the decision. And
we've not used Davidson County in some of these. I mean,
haven't used
it'd be
Knox, we didn't
impossible
use
for us to even
Davidson.
consider that.
because they're just light years ahead. Or even the state, we can't even use the state either.
I have a question. On the 2% that the mayor's recommending and everything, you feel that that is the prudent recommendation to kind of control the hemorrhaging, or,
I think being mindful of.
will it really be an effective control at this point that can be addressed?
Well, we don't think this will take care of you for another 5 years.
No,
probably.
I'm saying that this will kind of immediately take care of some of the hemorrhaging.
Yes, sir.
And that we can address when the situation may look a little bit rosier on down the line in the next budget or a couple of budgets down the line.
I think what it does for you is a couple of things. One, the 2% cost of living is a structure that just sometimes happens just for that reason. It's the cost of living. I think that helps with that in some respects. The other thing is while I know that the city of Murfreesboro only has X number of firefighters or X number of law enforcement, that everybody can't leave Rutherford County and go to the city of Murfreesboro because they're going to pay more, but they're already ahead of us in structure, and now they've passed to implement yet an additional pay increase. So that's going to separate us even further. And I know, like I said, they have to have turnover for us to actually lose our people to go there. But if we stay competitive at all with our positions that are like-minded in our own town, to include those positions, to include our technology positions, I just almost think we really need to do the 2% lift.
Okay, one other question. So, addressing what Commissioner Phillips was talking about, the 2%, do you think that will kind of alleviate some of the trauma that some of the employees went through because of the last thing that was involved as far as the insurance, the negativity there? Will that
I mean, it's not going to balance it out. They're still going to be in the negative, but
yeah, but I mean, it'll kind of make the pain less.
It would help.
severe.
Yes, I think it would help their monthly budget.
I'm not so sure, Paul, that it was the finances as much as just was losing coverage for some
Right.
family members.
Yeah.
That
Right.
was the big thing. But
Because when they had to pick it up somewhere else, it was more expensive than what they were paying here.
But still, that was part of the hue and cry about, well, look how much more it's going to cost me, you know.
Yeah.
So.
But those are the type of quote, cost-cutting measures that we're going to have to continue to explore as time goes by. And it just blows my mind to think that maybe even before I pass on, that this county could double in population again, and just to pay for what that increase in population would be it blows my mind. It just, where is all of those, and looking forward and trying to get ahead of that curve is extremely important, not only from planning for how we're going to handle all that, but in preparation for to take care of employees and other kinds of things too. It's going to be real important.
I'd rather be proactive in baby steps, is look back and say, we need 40 cents to fix this, or,
I would agree 100%.
How many people are scheduled or would be getting a $7,500 raise?
I'd have to look at that too. I can tell you that though. I don't.
It's not, I don't remember.
I mean, it was
It's
just
not-
a few, maybe 5 or 10, if even that. I mean, I would say between the 5 and 10. Because when you look at the ones that are 10% more, where's my sheet?
Here.
Oh, there it is. I can probably tell you. Like our, I mean, you can almost look at the ones who, the steps are more 3. It's probably around.
I'm not even sure it's
7.
5.
Yeah, it's between 5 and 10. I wouldn't say that it's more than 10. It's probably less than 10. And some of those are director positions that are capped, and then some of them are our defenders, our prosecutors.
I guess a couple of those.
3 prosecutors that would be capped because of where it was, and so those would be the primary, because when you've got the higher salary and you're applying a percentage to it, that's going to it's going to be higher. So when you're looking at the lower pay scale positions, they're probably not going to get to even with the 2 or 3 step. It's based on the higher salary, which is why we tailored all of a lot of your management type positions are the ones that were behind. And that's why we scaled them back to no more than the 2 steps, was because of the ability to pay, and then capped those that was going to go over even after that.
Does that 1.2 million include the increased pension contribution, or is that just the salary on it? So we're
Base
looking at
only.
More like 1.4 million then.
Yeah, yes, it's going to be another 20.
I mean,
whatever-
it's
whatever
base, it
Lisa-
is straight base salary, that's all.
So right now, you got, the budget has approved the step, and you'll be taking the 2% request of budget?
On the 4th,
On the
Thursday.
4th,
Yes.
okay. So this is just for us to digest and
Just to see.
continue to look at?
And we wanted to start up here somewhere, but we decided it was not practical for us to move that aggressively this particular time, so we sort of tried to craft something that might be reasonable and still take care of some of our major difficulties.
And I guess for, for my part, because of my reporting structure with each of you, the 21 commissioners, because that's who I report to, sometimes I take things like this and look at it and say, how does this impact? And I feel like it's my responsibility to bring it back to you. You know, so I get, in the future, I mean, I know that this board can change, you know, you vote on it to change. I would ask what would be the recommendation for me going forward, how you would like for me to address these. Would you like for me to ask in advance or wait for you to tell me? Or, you know, I saw the need and felt like in my position that was kind of my role to make sure that I made you aware. So, do you have a suggestion for me?
Well, I like you keeping us aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
Especially knowing what you're doing. I'm going to do a survey in December, like right now, so I'm going to do a survey this December and share the results with you next spring, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I know that some of the commissioners give me some homework to bring back. That kind of gets us into our next agenda item, discuss next meeting if needed. So I think that, in talking with Vicki, that there may not be business for July.
Sometime in July we don't.
Okay.
Several committees don't meet in July.
Okay, so we may not be meeting in July. So any information that you can get for us then for August, is that?
Well, their budget's going to look at this June 4th, and then you, as commissioners, will have it before you on the 26th, is what I'm guessing.
Well,
Would I be wrong in my?
Go ahead.
That's what I'm looking for clarification. When you say budget, we'll be looking at, do you mean the step increase, not the 2%?
No, they'll be looking at the 2%.
That's
They've already approved the steps.
That was the clarity I think I was looking for, because I wasn't going to feel comfortable voting on this tonight when you've got 3 different commissioners that had questions still, and
Right.
we kind of got, not to put Commissioner P on the spot, but we had a combined meeting the other night with the education, Board of Education School Board, and some of the information was not presented before we voted, and then we found out the next day, way off from what we thought we were going to be. But that's why I was pushing you, son. Unfortunately, you're getting the tail end, at least for this commissioner, of some trust, but verify and walk really slow in that direction. So that's what I was looking for. The step increase has been approved for budget.
Yes, sir.
And then if we need to continue to keep having these discussions, as Commissioner Gooch mentioned, we can do that in August and say, hey, here's where we are now. And Commissioner Phillips mentioned something in December, kind of how you keep us proactively updated. That makes me feel a lot better than
Well, I think
where we were.
part of my bringing to you was for information. I don't know that because it's budgetary, I don't know that it's something for you to vote. I just wanted to make you aware of what I was going to take forward. And so mine is more of giving you information so that you have it as my reporting body, because I will be taking that forth to the budget committee on June 4th.
Okay.
And so I don't think that it's something you have to vote on.
Gotcha.
I may be wrong in my assessment on that.
That's what I heard somebody say, would we put this on the budget? And I didn't know. I was looking for some clarification. So, Mayor, you can confirm
What
what
we're saying is the current recommendation has these.
It's a step
rates.
increase, right?
And they can even, that's just a recommendation.
Right, they
for
could
them.
say, hey, that's not even
They
close,
may
so
take
we
that
wanna
off and say, we're not going to
remove
give any
that.
step raises next year if
Okay.
they showed where to choose.
So,
But this was only for informational purposes
Yes,
only,
sir.
not for the steering committee to make a decision, say, well, we really want to encourage budget to do this, or we want the mayor to go back and say, steering is on board with this. That's exactly what I was looking for. Perfect.
What we did in each of the budgets when they presented their budgets to the budget committee, the step increases were included, and then there was another number.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I didn't see their budget book, so I don't know exactly what it was, but Lisa would say, now there's another number that we're going to be bringing forth to you after all the budgets are done. Part of the reason that we did that is, one, is we wanted you to have the totality of, we wanted budget to have the totality of all the budgets to say, this is where we're at from a financial perspective on how much it's going to cost. The whole purpose of this is taking it then back and saying, this was that bottom line number that we said that we would bring back.
Right.
Because you are the body that I report to, I wanted you to be aware of what I was going to take to them June 4th, so that you would know.
Sure.
And then also you'll have that information.
moving forward.
They've
Moving
already,
Thank you.
Lisa's already included a number, and she's not here, so I don't know where she got it, but the salary study quote number that she's already shown the budget committee was $1,780,000. So, $1,727,000 is still in that range, okay?
Has there been any more discussion about putting new hires on like a retirement plan, like a 403B?
Yes, there's going to be, yes, but not during this budget session.
When is that going to be discussed?
We
Some
discussed it
months
2
ago, we
years now.
discussed this. It's an extraordinarily complex issue. It'll take us several months to get that work through. I mean, it may take us 6 months.
Because the take-home pay is the problem. If you put all the new hires on a 4% match with a retirement account like everybody else out there gets, that would free up 8.44 cents for every dollar payroll that we could use to return some take-home pay and also have savings for taxpayers.
Well, we'd have to have a consultant
Of course.
also, because the laws are extremely strict on you making sure that you pick the right policies and for the right contributions. There's been some lawsuits, and in fact, we received something even this week. Part of the reason we've stayed with the structure that we have is because the state of Tennessee manages that fund for us. And I believe, was it last year or year before last, I brought before the whole body some different plans for the retirement, and at the time the body said we choose to stay as we're doing today. I absolutely don't mind bringing that back up if that's what you want me to
Yeah,
do.
I'd like to talk about that in a future meeting, because
I
that's
would-
just something that's got to change. Everybody else
Yeah.
is changing. The state changed their own, they
Right.
pulled out of their own plan and went to the 403B or the retirement.
They've got a hybrid
They got a
plan.
hybrid plan.
1%.
It's half and half.
It's 1% pension and 5% matching the 401K, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I think it is a percentage base. The employee pays 5% of their TCRS, and it's like a 50 percentage that they pay on that. I think the state pays, it depends on what your population base, so it's different for everybody. I wouldn't want to quote because I don't know what their population base is. But they take your current structure that you have based on the number of people that could retire, their age at they currently are, and what you're currently paying out, and then they get an evaluation. So like right now, the county is paying 12.64% towards that. It doesn't necessarily mean if we went to a hybrid plan, and that's what we found is when we pulled our data, we had to send it to an actuarial, and when we did that and pulled it, it wasn't going to save as much as it would have benefited the employee, and I think that's why the body decided, well, it's not going to save us, but like $100,000 or something.
Well,
I'm throwing out a random
It's
number.
going to take a long period of time for it to really
to catch up. It's like
to be meaningful,
years.
but you have to start it
But
at
over
some point.
time, like we'll save millions and
Yes.
tens of millions.
Over time, it would.
You're correct.
We've got to start, and I've been saying that since day one. People say, no, don't bring it up, we don't want to deal with this, it's too controversial, people are going to be mad,
Well-
we just keep kicking the can down the road and accrue more liability we can't afford. And we've got to say at some point, we're stopping this for all the new hires, and we're putting them on a regular match. I think we need to get out of the pension business altogether and put everybody on a retirement account. And I would like to have that at our, the next meeting, either August or September, so we can get working on this.
Can you?
Let's make it September.
I was gonna say, because what you're asking for is I'm sitting here just calculating in my head trying to get all that together. Because
Well, we can start the study in September.
Okay,
Not that
okay.
it's got to be.
Well,
Just
I
give
think
you some
the
basis
study really
information.
started already. I mean, we
Yeah.
did
We've already
substantial
started.
amount of work previously, but then we just said we're not going to move forward on it. So,
Well, whatever
the commission
information
did.
you can provide, because I think Commissioner Phillips, even if he was indirectly not going to this point, Commissioner Stevens did. We still need to look at that, even if it's just starting that ball slow rolling down the hill of having those conversations about pension reform, retirement plans being the preferred or only way that the county makes those plans with the employees. So I'm completely in support of what he's saying. Even if we don't agree on how to get there, I want to start having that conversation in September with what information you can provide that's already been done, and even some conversation. I mean, I trust all the commissioners up here to give feedback that I might be missing, to have that conversation, because it is getting, I mean, when we're paying that much in, I think we need, if we're looking at all of this, we might as well look at the whole enchilada with retirement plans and pension plans and things like that, and not just limited to what are we doing about the salaries.
Right.
Add everything else in there, because if we hire people, put them on a retirement plan, it's some type of investment with a 401k or 403, whatever, and start slowly getting off of that pension plan, even if we have
And
to.
it
Like
will-
the mayor said, it's going to take
you
years.
some time. Yeah, it'll take you
That's
some time. You
okay.
won't see the benefit this year, or you'll see a nominal amount up
Yeah.
to 5 or 10 years, but it's 20 years like the population that I said could retire today.
Sure.
You know, within 5 years, 300 and something of our employed population. So when that retires off, if they go on to a different plan structure, that's where you start seeing the difference.
But it's good to have that conversation now, and while we're doing it, let's do it and start in September and have a public conversation even more so than what we have been. And I know we have had some of those conversations in public, but let's really get going on it. Even like you said, I know we're not going to make the impact now, but at least we're going to do it and not keep kicking that can where, you know, commissioners that don't even know they're going to be elected in several years don't have to necessarily start dealing with that as soon as they come on. We got to be the ones to do this. Let's own it and start having that conversation publicly.
And just in the event that any of our employees are watching, so that they don't, you know, it can't impact current population. It can
Right.
only be new hires. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure
No,
that our current
no, I
employees
get
don't
that,
think
yeah.
that we're going to be taking a
Yeah,
big,
next
because
Be a
it's
grandfather.
right. It have to be
Right.
grandfather,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So I just wanted to
I
make
get
sure
that.
that I
No,
said
that's
that just in
okay.
case
Yeah.
somebody was watching.
You don't want to get those ugly emails in the morning.
Well, no, I just don't want them to cause them distress. I
Sure.
mean, you know, they start thinking, well,
Absolutely.
okay, now my insurance is changing, and I'm
Now
going
my
to take.
pension's
So I just want to make sure that they understand that it's for new hires. But
Right.
I still have the PowerPoint that I did before, so I'll see if I can update that information. If I can, then I'll bring that to you.
Great, thank you.
Did the state treasurer or comptroller's office do a presentation about why we needed to change it?
But they didn't say why you need to change, but they told us what the options are and the alternatives. Yes, they did make us a presentation to.
And I put it into the presentation that I gave. I did a PowerPoint presentation before. Actually, I did 2 different ones, and I incorporated what Mr. Lilliard gave us, and I incorporated that into it and what it meant for Rutherford County, because he did it based on the state, and I took the county's numbers and put in there. So I did the same presentation. And he said the whole reason was to offset the liability.
So my understanding was that they advised that we make the changes to help with the future liabilities.
They didn't advise us.
No, they didn't.
But I mean, they
recommend.
No,
they didn't
he's-
recommend. They did this so we would have choices that the
Suggest-
commissioners and the counties could make and the other jurisdictions that are participating.
Well, I think it's obvious why they would give us the information, so we can see what the liabilities are, and know
That's
if we
right.
need to do something about the situation before it gets worse. And can we get somebody from them to come to our meeting too, from their office?
Well, I would say we can kind of start the conversation. This is not going to be a one meeting topic, I don't think, but I think we get the conversation going in September. But yeah, we can have them come address us.
I mean, they came and talked to a couple of times a quarter. We have our leadership meetings where we ask the elected officials and the directors come together, and we had them come to 2 of our meetings a couple of years ago.
The
and
treasurer
they came,
and the person in charge of this has
and
made
Casey
the
Lance,
presentation, so they're
and
available.
the 403 Great West, who is under their plan. They came and did that. So, I mean, they don't mind coming, so that's not an issue at all.
I think it'd be good to hear it directly from them.
Okay.
Okay. In the meantime, if anyone has any more questions for Ms. Stevenson, I know Commissioner P's going to have a sit-down with you at some point, so he'll make an appointment for that.
We can order
So
lunch
we'll-
and have a sandwich, and I've got some Diet Cokes. Come on.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
First of all, 15%, I'm not gonna push the panic button on that. When you look at the private sector that's moving in Rutherford County and the salaries they're paying, as long as we comparing government bodies to government bodies, it's fine. But one concern I've had over the past couple of years is departments. Now, if I look at Hamilton County Sheriff Department, and he's got 400 working in his department, and I come down into Rutherford County and I got 500, can you give me the difference of why?
I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. You're saying we're comparing our salaries, but they have less and we have more. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. I can't answer that for every department, but I know that when CTAS does their studies, CTAS has done some studies in some of our departments, they base it on our population. It's the squire, for like the sheriff's office, I remember, is it Kevin Lauer that does the sheriff's office stuff?
No, he's the fire person.
No, what's
Terry Hazard.
Terry Hazard.
And Jim
Terry
Hurt.
Hazard, when I asked the question why we would need more people, because they did a survey saying we need more people. why would we need more? And it's based on the population within the Rutherford County and how many square miles are county versus the cities. So they have several factors that they include in, but I mean, I don't know overall what that would be. I mean, if you look at HR departments in Hamilton County versus our HR department, they're going to have a whole lot more than we do.
Way more.
So, I mean,
4 or 5 times as many. But we are gathering a bit of data. It's hard to measure. In other words, just take the detention center. I don't know how many cells they have compared to how many we have, what their population is. All of that is just a direct function of how many inmates we're having to care for. So, but we've already had one study that called for a substantial increase just in the detention center on bodies, which we haven't implemented. So we're gathering some of that data, and as time goes forward, we'll have those discussions with public safety.
Oh, I just pulled that one department out, I'm interested in all departments, basically speaking.
so you're wanting me to do what? You're wanting
In
me
other
to
words-
see how many employees they have by department in each of these other entities?
Yeah, for an example, if we got 300,000 people in Rutherford County or whatever, and you compare me with Hamilton County or whatever, Montgomery County or whatever, we got something similar to what we got. And here, our department down here may be working with 20 more or 20 less. That's the type of data I would like to have. Why?
You just want a flat number?
Right.
Okay.
Some of those questions are asked at the particular committee area, like the public safety committee, that's asked, has been asked and re-asked, and there is this quote formula that somebody uses that doesn't make
It's the
a lot of
CPAS, I'm
sense
sure.
to someone like me, but they have a reason and rationale for it. But it's a really good point. It's a really good question. Why would a county as big as Hamilton County need less deputies than Rutherford County? But there is those types of things that are talked about.
Part of it is
committee
the
structure.
square mileage that they have to patrol for law enforcement. And I just say that because I just remember that being one of the things that I read in that analysis, and it's something about the square miles.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the area they have to cover.
Right.
But I think, first of all,
Like I said, I'm looking for it for these.
Everybody, I got it.
we just don't have accurate data. Until we get accurate data that gives us specific numbers for every department, our county versus the other counties, we really don't have good data to
Well, that's the type
have a
of
good
question
discussion.
that my constituents ask.
Okay.
So in order for me to give them an answer, I have to come to you.
Sure. I will try
Any
to
other
put that
questions?
survey together tomorrow.
Any other questions, Mr. McAdoo?
No, it's.
You had, okay.
Oh, I thought you had two.
Yeah, I thought you had 3.
Hey, if you get that one, that would be a big start.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so it doesn't appear that we will need to have a July meeting.
We've got 3 positions that we announced. We don't have to fill those in July.
I think that the mayor had talked with Vicki that could wait till August. Is that correct? Do
I
we
think
need
that's
to
what
meet?
she said. I hadn't talked to her today about it, but we talked a little
That
bit
was
earlier.
my impression.
I
Okay.
think Becky may have talked to her as well.
We're just going to anticipate not having a July meeting unless y'all hear from us. Commissioner Pete.
Something I wanted to bring up for us to talk about in the future, and Mr. Turner knows, he's nodding, he knows what I'm
Yes.
fixing to bring up. During our ethics committee meetings, we came to realize that there are other management systems out there. We're operating under a private act that was enacted in, 1979, Mayor Burgess?
I think that's what Lisa said.
And these are basically for accounting purposes, is my understanding. There's also an act of 1957 that had we enacted it, when someone is found to have committed a conflict of interest or, felony, misdemeanor, or whatever, the consequences under these acts are a lot stiffer than the acts that we're currently under. And after looking at that and asking the attorney that we had hired, and he agreed that yes, the consequences were stiffer under these other acts, you know, it might be something that we want to look at. However, I'm not pushing or advocating that we do that. There might be a very good reason that we're under the act that we are, but I think it might be good for us to look at those and see what our options might be. You know, like I said, one of them I think was geared toward highway departments. Another, you know, I'd heard that you might even do some line item budgeting under some of these. Some of them also, or one of them I was told that if you go to it, then you can never come away from it. So, you know, there's maybe pitfalls out there we don't want to get into, but it might behoove us to look at. I think there's 4 different systems that we could actually look at and go under. I didn't write those down to come in, but I wanted to pass that on. If y'all don't want to look at them, that's fine. I'll look at them on my own, and you know.
These ethics policies?
No, these are accounting policies.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
But under them, the laws are different on how you.
I think
The
maybe
consequences for breaking the law under these the consequences are a lot stiffer.
Lisa heard the same discussion that he's bringing up here right now. I think it might be good, at least as preliminarily, is to get her in here just to sort of summarize and review, let her do some homework on 1957 versus 1981 versus what we've got and whatever else might be out there. And just as a beginning point, she'd have to do a little bit of homework on that. So again,
September.
This is not a good time for
no,
her.
but especially for her right now, it wouldn't be a good time.
And on what we're looking at right now, you know, the horse is already out of the barn on this one. So I mean, I'm like our chairman. You know, we can put this off on the back burner for a little bit, but it's something I think it'd be good for us to look at.
And
Our back burner's full right now, but go ahead, Mayor.
And I was going to say, the comptroller tried to initiate and took it to the legislature, but it never really got any serious consideration in 2012 or 13. He was going to have another 2013 option. They've come up with some things they think are important to change even beyond what's out there and available. So that's still sort of out there, and what he's going to push it again, I don't know. So, but I think we can get her to give a good overview, and then you can have a basis of information from which to go forward on to determine if we want to make a change.
If nothing else, we'll move on to our item number 9, appointment of judicial commissioner for Smyrna, Ms. Maggie Crest. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. So we have several items on our back burner that we will look and place on the agenda on future months. And any more questions on this pay plan, please give Ms. Stevenson a call. And any other business for the committee?
We'd like to add one more thing to our back burner.
Okay.
About setting up a technology committee. I think it would be really good for us to have a committee of people that are more skilled than we are in the technology aspect of things, and what we need and what we don't need. They can look and see if we're paying for duplicate programs, where we could, you know, buy one program, 2 offices share it, because everybody seems to have their own thing. I think it'd be really beneficial for us to look at setting that up at some point soon.
Is that something like similar to the insurance committee? Just have a technology committee to look at overall
Like an
technology
advisory committee, and
software?
when we're looking at buying a new software package, this committee would help with deciding which one would be the one for
Okay.
us to use. And, you know, if the assessor's office uses one program, the registrar's office uses a program, the trustee's office uses a program, is there a way that we can cut one of those out and share to save money? And I think that committee would be able to go department by department and see if there's ways we can save money and improve our efficiency.
Okay, cool. Commissioner Phillips?
I had on my calendar for our July meeting to revisit the consent agenda to see how it was going. I think we said we'd do that after 6 months, so we might want to do that at our next meeting in August.
Okay.
Just to revisit to see how it's going and if we want to make any changes to it.
Since you brought that up, and you mentioned at the last meeting, and it also occurred to me, and I talked to the mayor,
First thing on the
when we
commission
have
meeting, those things that are non-contract
announcements of vacancies that has been going on the consent agenda, that needs to be, in my opinion, read at that meeting, so
That's one of the
Since-
things that we've taken off the consent.
So it's
agenda.
gonna be
Right.
in the future.
Yeah.
All right.
That and the announcements as to who we're recommending for committee assignments, openings and fillings. So,
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Would it be okay with each of you if the items that I have found that are that you've asked for, they're related to what I presented tonight? If I email you that information, that way you'll have it in advance. Are you okay with me doing that? Okay. That way you'll have it in advance.
Yeah.
and you won't wait.
Probably encourage that, actually, at least I
Okay.
do. It'd be helpful.
That'll make you think of more questions.
It does.
Yeah. And you can just email her back.
Not take up your time.
Anything else? If not, this committee stands adjourned.